Central Valley. Welcome to this week's episode of Valley Movers and Shakers. I'm your host, Kevin Little. I'm glad you're joining us again this evening. We have a great array of guests lined up for this evening's episode, and I'm sure you're going to be motivated and entertained at the same time. For those of you who have not tuned in before, let me tell you a little bit about our show and what we are trying to accomplish every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Valley Movers and Shakers is based on the premise. It was born based on the premise, I should say, that you hear enough bad news in your daily lives. And what we try to focus on here is showing you people who are trying to improve the quality of life in our community in any respect, whether it's through their business, through their community service, through their art, students who are doing well, in any respect, people who are striving to achieve more and to not only improve things for themselves, but for those around them. As I've said many times, everything you see around you exists because somebody had a dream to create it, and not only had that dream, but did what was necessary to make that dream a reality. So we hope to entertain and also motivate. So I think we have got some guests who will do that today, and we will get started as soon as we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Valley Movers and Shakers, and I'm very proud to introduce our first guest for tonight's show, Cheri Cruz, the CEO of College Career Advocacy Leadership, Inc., as well as being an educator and just an all-around energetic, positive person.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Well, great. Well, you know, Cheri, you, as I understand it, are an educator affiliated with two different universities, correct?
Correct.
Both Fresno State and Alliant?
Correct.
Alliant International. But in addition to that, one would think maybe you've got your hands full doing all of that, but in addition to that, you found the time to create a program, a mentoring program for college-bound youth. Isn't that right?
That's right. So being an educator for many years, I do understand the struggles and trials that students go through to access higher education, in particular in our community. We have a large population of young people who would be the first in their family to go to college. I relate to that story. I was the first in my family to go to college. And so came up with this concept of putting together a college career life skills boot camp to serve students who perhaps are high potential and high level of capacity for learning, but maybe low in terms of having role models in their home or others that can kind of show them the way. And so putting this program together is a way to help them through.
All right, and I definitely want to talk more about that. But first, let's talk about you and how you got to your point. You said that you have some experience and you relate to some of the folks who participate in your program. How did you get to become a university professor?
Well, I have to say that it was my second grade teacher, Miss Lanfranco, who influenced me as a little girl. I looked up to her and I thought I was going to be a teacher just like her. And it's funny that time has passed. I look back and I say, you know, I didn't become an elementary school teacher, but I do teach at the university level at Fresno State in the counselor education program. So I think that that aspiration has always been within me. Part of my teaching includes advocacy. I'm not exactly sure where that came from, but I can tell you that my parents did not go to college. My dad went into the military. My mom took care of the family and assisted my father as they grew a small business here locally. I am a native of Fresno, graduated from McLean High School, and I've always had a passion for serving others. I've always known that. Getting my degree in counselor education, I started working with populations and providing support and counseling and learning more about people's behaviors and why they choose the directions that they choose. And I realized that a lot of folks don't have that opportunity to sit with someone and actually go through what are their aspirations or their aptitude, their abilities, and have that little bit of a push to get them where they need to go. So that's kind of why I started this nonprofit.
Well, that's excellent. And you know, one of the things that I hear educators whom I respect say is that educators, while I know we obviously have rules to enforce on campus and that sort of things, but at the end of the day, as an educator, you're there to be a springboard for your students, not an obstacle.
That's right.
And it sounds like you had somebody like that
I
early
had Miss
on.
Len Franco, my second grade teacher. In my classroom at Fresno State, my students are all geared for going out in the community and serving in a counsel role, whether it's in higher education, K-12, maybe they want to go into personal counseling, become, have their own practice. And so I'm also teaching young folks to go out and learn how to work with individuals in the area of career development, personal development, goal setting, personal coaching. And that's an area I'm very passionate about. But something that you should know about our community, we have a very low college going rate.
Right.
So we're about 20% of our population that are college educated. Not that everybody has to go to a junior college or university to be successful. And we know many of our folks in our community are having businesses and doing a lot of things without that education. But you know how important that can be.
Yeah, no one can deny education on the whole is
Laying
extremely
that
important.
foundation.
Sure.
So being that it's low, I mean, that's something to take a look at. And then we look at specific populations. If you look at our African American population, for example, we're about 3% of our population in our colleges and universities are African American. Okay, we get to about 10% of our population are Asian. We're doing better with our Latino population. We're getting up to 60% now, but there's been a lot of push in our community to make that happen. But an area that I want to work on, Kevin, this is something that I'm very passionate about, is looking at what's going on with our foster youth. What about our youth, who need that extra support? We have children in our school district that are homeless. So I don't just want to serve our traditional population. I also want to reach out and work with these young people and embrace them with the love and care and teach them how to advocate not only for their college but for their lives.
Well, Cheri, explain to us, because this dream evolved from somewhere. Okay, so you were, teaching both at Fresno State and Alliant International, and one day you were inspired and you thought, we need a program such as yours. And how did that come about?
I was called to do this. At one point, I was working at Fresno State, and under an initiative under the Central Valley Higher Education Consortium, I was asked to coordinate the Hispanic Youth Symposium. And we were inviting over 200 kids at one point onto campus for a residential experience where we provided them support, guidance, mentoring, put them in workshops, showed them the way, an application to get to college, but also we provided them an opportunity to bond, to learn about themselves. And through those experiences of coordinating that for a number of years, I found that I might have a little talent for it. So my thought was, how do I take this concept that I think is working quite nicely? Because if we look at the data of that program, 100% of those students went on to college or university. How do I take the concept of that program and expand it outwardly so that it's a little more accessible for other students? And so that's something that I've been working on for a number of years. I've done about 6 or 7 of these camps now, and this past year I was really affected by some of the data going on in our schools with suicide. And so I looked at our curriculum, I looked at what we were doing with the college going and career planning, and I integrated in the curriculum life skills, because I want young people to learn ways to demonstrate healthy behaviors for themselves and for the people around them, and that there are options without harming yourself.
And so College Career Advocacy Leadership, Inc., as the name suggests, is intended to push people towards obtaining a higher education, but it's more than that. It's trying to teach people life skills.
That's right. So every student that goes through our camp will receive a life coach. That'll be somebody in our community that's an entrepreneur, business person, or industry, somebody that's made it, someone that can now deliver that information and resources back. So they get a coach. They also have opportunities to go through workshops, from everything that they need to know to get prepared to go off to college. Everything from writing your personal essay to working on your SAT, ACT, to doing some career assessment, all of those things. So if they're going to choose a major, they know what to choose. They also, though, learn how to do some service learning, and so when they leave the camp, they go out and they're going to work with elementary kids and share that knowledge through a partnership with Artie Padilla's program, the Every Neighborhood Partnership.
The Every Neighborhood Partnership.
Yes,
that's right.
and so they'll be giving back also in the community, working with elementary children as well.
So it's one thing to have the idea, it's one thing to know how to implement it, but then you have to find enthusiastic people to support your program, and all more important, you got to find the money.
That's right.
To enable it. How did that come about?
So I'm so pleased to announce as of today the Walter S. Johnson Foundation out of the Bay Area has committed some resources to our program, and we're also working with Fresno Unified School District for a match. And through the mentoring program and Project Access with the foster care youth, I think we're going to be able to pull this off for the winter. We're looking for other resources and in-kind support for these kids. We're going to put them in dorms for a week at Fresno Pacific. We have to feed them, obviously. We have other needs for them. And so if anyone is interested also in supporting it, my information will be available on this program. So we're very excited about the way it's coming. And we also have in-kind support coming from the Center for New Americans and Big Brothers Big Sisters, who are major partners, and the every neighborhood partnership with the Artie Padilla's leadership. So with that going on, I think we're going to be able to pull this off.
So you've got local groups, and because mentoring is something that our public education systems don't do enough of, because studies show that is correlated to a high level of improvement and success for students who have some participation, correct?
Absolutely. And not only will they have the opportunity to get a life skills coach, a business coach at the event, but they're going to continue that relationship ongoing past the event, and so that they'll have now, let's say, a hookup, somebody that they can reach out to if they're confused about something. Sometimes navigating the simplest things for us can be very difficult for a young person. And you're right, the correlation of someone who gets the mentoring and goes through an experience, especially having it on a university campus, study shows that they're more likely to attend. And sometimes it's more likely to attend the campus that they first touch. Many of our students in our community haven't touched any campus, so it's nice to get them on a campus, get them comfortable, and then they can start visioning themselves there.
Now, I do want to turn for a second to obviously a very serious topic, and one of the things that I know that motivated your program and the expansion of it was, the unfortunate suicides that we've had in many of the Central Valley schools in the last several years. And what is the assistance and the support that CCAL Inc. tries to provide to keep that from reoccurring?
So at the camp, what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to immerse them with a lot of love and support. I'll have college and university mentors with them as well, and we will have workshop providers who will help them with even things as, how to self-soothe, how to calm yourself down when you're feeling stressed out. There's an app called Calm. You can download it on your phone, and just showing them how to go there when you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Right. Teaching them about meditation and yoga and ways that you can release your stress as a young person, rather than taking it out on yourself or someone else. We'll also have mental health practitioners there, so we can have some counseling and guidance going on. And the other thing we're going to do is have them self-author. And this theory is a student development theory. The idea is that if you can get a young person to author their story, it's more likely that they'll make it come true. And so seeing their life through a positive lens, and with that positive peer support during the camp, with all the other love and support that's going on, I think will be a game changer for many of these young people who maybe prior to coming to this experience didn't embrace their potential and see their gifts, and when they leave, they sure will.
Moving forward, Cheri, what is the goal? Is it that CCAL Inc. will continue as its own entity, partnering with school districts, or is there something else that's in the works?
In looking at just even Fresno Unified alone, which again I'm very passionate about. I live in Fresno. I'm a product of Fresno Unified. I know in the mentoring program they have at least 500 children who are interested in participating in some sort of mentoring. So my goal would be at least to service those children and be able to have enough camps going on throughout the year that all of them can go through, and then go back to the elementary school and then touch another young person and build that out. And that ripple effect, I think, would be phenomenal. I'm not sure how big this is going to get, but I know
it gets really big.
We have the potential, and we have a number of universities and colleges in our area that can house and provide the support, and we want to show them everything from getting an associate's to a doctorate degree. great. Why not? And so I think that the potential is very large, and I think with the school district's support, I think we can do a whole lot.
And how do you identify the students that you want to participate in the program? Is it simply whoever's motivated to seek assistance, or do you have some outreach efforts to try to attract a certain type of student?
There will definitely be outreach efforts. We're going to work with Fresno Pacific University in developing some of the application and outreach efforts along with Fresno Unified School District. We're going to reach out through teachers and counselors, and we're going to look for students who will be the first in their family to attend college. We're not looking for the students that are the 4.0s. We're happy with a student that might be a 2.5, 2.6 GPA,
right,
but has passion and can really benefit from the program. So there'll be a small essay or something, in that application. And as soon as those applications are out, I will definitely not only let you know, but it'll be on social media so that we can also expand it out to the community.
Cheri, one of the things that I like to give my guests an opportunity to do during their segment is you can talk to the audience directly and say that there's somebody out there, a student who is doing okay, but doesn't have the mentorship, doesn't have the direction that perhaps he or she needs, or a parent of such a student. If you could talk directly to someone like that, what would you want to what would you want to say to them?
I would say that trying to find out who you are is a journey. It's a process. Right. So if you're feeling a little confused, or if your child seems a little confused right now about what their future holds and what they want to be when they grow up, that's such a daunting question.
When do we ever grow up?
That's normal. Yeah. But we have to start with some investigative things. And so I would be happy to talk to anyone who has a question about how to start that journey in terms of, building your career development plan out. Obviously, I want to encourage folks to do what they're passionate about, do what they love, because the money will come later.
Right.
You just got to find something that you're good at. So there's career assessments that I usually start with when I'm dealing with a younger person. And so it's just, some of these things can even be done online at home. I'd be happy to share that information, but just go online, take maybe a 15, 20-minute assessment, kind of find out where your strengths and weaknesses are and how that might match up to a major and to a career is a good starting point.
Right.
And then to start talking to people anywhere you're at. You could be in the grocery store. Hey, how are you? What do you do for a living? Tell me, how did you learn to do that? Right. Not be shy. If you're at the dentist or your doctor's office or anywhere that you have the opportunity. You can use your mouth, you can speak to ask questions and find out what you're interested in and engage all of that. But I think really having someone sit with you and go over a career assessment is really important. And all of the high schools have a career center, so I would suggest also going in there and asking to do something at your high school and share that with a parent share it with the child, share it with your counselors, and make an informed decision about what you want to do later. And let's not say when we grow up, because as you just said, when do we really ever grow up? Yeah.
Well, Cheri, I really appreciate your coming on the show. We hear people from my generation, from your generation, who express frustration with the youngsters and the fact that they're into their devices and maybe don't have the same ideals that we once had. But instead of complaining about those things, you have actually interfaced with folks and developed a mechanism for things to change.
I say let's embrace them, and if we need to get updated more with technology or figure out a better way to reach them, let's do that. It's up to us as the adults to embrace the next generation. So I think that the College Career Advocacy Leadership Inc. is ready to do that. Our boot camp is coming up in the winter, and I think that we're going to have a good start. And I look forward to, helping this community build that out. And so pleased with Fresno Unified School District for their support.
Cheri Cruz, thank you so much.
Thank
I hope you come back time and again and keep us updated.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Valley Movers and Shakers, and I am very happy to introduce our next guest, Elias Delgado of Bay Equity Home Loans. Mr. Delgado, thank you for being on the episode. Appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I understand that you've got a company that's been doing a lot of exciting things here in the community and reaching out and promoting special programs for people who are interested in entering the buyer's market?
Yeah, I'm very excited to be working for a company that promotes home ownership in our community.
That's right.
It's really, really important because as a homeowner, you have more options than you do when you're renting.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, you get to build wealth. You get to create an asset for not only for you, but for your family. Right.
Right. It really helps our community when you really think about it, because even thinking from the standpoint of knowing that your mortgage payment is not going to increase over time like rent does.
Right.
And in this market, a lot of people who own investment properties are selling them, and those new owners are increasing the rent. So you're finding that people in our community are feeling the crunch of even rising rents as it is.
That's right. Well, let's tell us a little bit about you and your roots and how you got into home lending.
Well, I used to work, my background, when I was 17, I started working for a credit union and then other financial institutions, banks.
Right.
But I was really inspired, and I started working with a nonprofit organization, Fair Housing Council, actually.
Okay.
And then once I worked with them, I really liked the nonprofit work, and I started working with another company that was called By Design, and now was ClearPoint. And what they did is, at the time, they started seeing some troubles with people losing their homes to foreclosures or falling behind.
What year was this, pretty much?
So this was probably 2007, 2008.
So right when the crash began.
Right when it began.
Yeah.
And so we received funds from the federal government and the state to help people promote home, being able to keep their homes through Keep Your Home California program and others. And as I was doing the counseling sessions for these folks, I realized that a lot of these loans were not done correctly, and most of these people did not know what they were signing. They were not financially or well educated about what they were doing.
What were some of the problems with those loans that people were signing back then when the panic set in and people were trying to, I got to do something to save my home, but there were a lot of really there was a lot of predatory lending going on, wasn't there?
Yeah, several things. Number
Sure.
one, you had people that, traditionally when people buy a home, for the most part, the interest rate stays the same, the house payment stays the same for the life of the loan. So people are excited to buy a home, and they were offered loans where the interest rate would change,
Right.
or they didn't realize they were paying less than the interest, so the balance of the loan was increasing over time.
Right.
And so that was really heartbreaking, and that really inspired me to say, you know what, if I ever get into this industry, I want to do things differently. I want to bring my background with nonprofit work and be able to give them appropriate financial education,
Right.
so that the person can make a well-based decision.
And that's pretty unusual, isn't it? There aren't a lot of people who end up in your industry who have a nonprofit community service background.
Not many people do, but post the financial crisis, many of the people in my industry are very focused on customer service and making sure that they're taking care of their clients. It really, the financial crisis really took away a lot of the people that were just there for the money and very unethical. So most of the folks, I would say, in our industry are really, really good at what they do.
Right. So what's your connection to the Valley? Did you grow up here? Did you move here from somewhere else?
So I grew up here in Fresno,
Mhm.
and the first elementary school that I went to, because I didn't speak English,
Right.
was West Fresno Elementary School.
Okay.
So talk about coming in, you don't know the culture, you don't know the backgrounds, and not many people speak your language.
Right.
So that's how I learned the language right away.
Right.
I was 6 years old. I went into first grade, and right away my teacher didn't speak Spanish, and no one in the children, none of them speak Spanish either. So
And so that wasn't easy, but you managed to do it.
it wasn't easy, but you know what? You embrace a challenge, and I think that when you're challenged, even when you're younger,
Right.
you really get to appreciate the rewards of that.
Right. And so from going to West Fresno Elementary, how did you progress from there towards higher education? Tell us your story.
from there, then I grew up then on the southeast part of Fresno.
Right.
And then I went to Duncan High School, and at the
Right.
time, even now, it's a really, really good high school.
Sure.
But you had to apply. It was a quasi college, and I thought that was really, really fun.
Right.
Going there and graduating from that. That was my alma mater.
Right.
So, and then from there, that's how I ended up working at a bank, because they had a really good program where half the day for 4 days a week they would send you out to a job site and really prepare you for a career. So that was, and I love financing, I love banking, I love helping people, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about my work. Trying to find solutions, financial solutions for our clients, and being able to promote that home ownership is really what I'm all about.
So usually when a client comes to you, some of them already have a property in mind, some of them don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are looking to get pre-qualified.
Correct.
And how do you go about getting started, educating them, and getting them on the pathway towards home ownership?
Well, the first thing that we do the first thing that I do is I talk to my clients about what are their financial goals, how much they're paying as rent,
Sure.
or how much money they have saved up.
Right.
All of those questions are important. The basics of a loan is how much money you're going to borrow,
Right.
and how you're going to pay it back, and how are you going to come up with down payment assistance,
Right.
right? I mean, or the down payment, or if you need down payment assistance.
Sure.
Yeah. So we check their credit. We check their income. We check their deposits on the banks, and also we check their taxes. All of that financial information is the first step, and then we can talk to them about how down payment assistance programs work and if it's the right thing for them. Yeah.
Now, many people don't realize, and I think that's one of the reasons why you wanted to speak tonight on the show. Many people don't realize that some people assume perhaps I've got some issues in my background, I don't have a long work history, but there are lots of programs, and if you have a knowledgeable loan person like yourself, you can find a way. It might not be the size or the price of house they want, but you can find a way to own a home.
Well, and you're right about that. Many
Right.
people don't realize that some of these programs, for example, FHA loans,
Right.
you're able to lend for someone who has a credit score as low as 580,
Right.
right? With a minimum down payment of 3.5% down payment.
Right.
How does that translate? Well, if you buy a house for $100,000, that's $3,500.
Right.
If you buy a house for $200,000, that's $7,000, and so forth.
Right.
But there's also the down payment assistance programs. For example, anyone who has a 640 credit score are able to obtain these benefits and be able to get into the house of their dreams, really.
And would you agree that right now is a critical juncture in the Valley for people to really concentrate on trying to own homes? Because this community is going to change in the next 10 years.
Well, we already see a change.
Right.
I do loans throughout the state of California, but I see very interesting patterns, for example, in communities like Manteca.
Right.
Some of the brand new homes that are selling there,
Right.
they're very comparable to the ones you would buy here in Fresno for the high 200s, maybe
Sure.
300,000.
Right.
They're buying them for $500,000.
Right.
And that's because there's an influx of people that are working in the Bay Area
Right.
that have no problem driving back as long as they are homeowners.
Right.
It's because they appreciate the importance of being a homeowner as part of building wealth,
Right.
as a cornerstone for wealth.
Right.
So we're seeing a few things that are happening here in the Valley. We're seeing high-speed rail coming.
Sure.
We're seeing other infrastructure being built, and the continuous population continues to grow here in California.
Right.
So I always tell my clients the best time to buy a home
Right.
is when you're ready.
Right.
But you won't know if you're ready if you don't get financially educated
Right.
about your circumstances.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what can you do what do you try to do to get people financially educated once they come to you?
Well, part of the things that we do, for example, pulling their credit, finding out what their income is, finding out what their debts are, and then finding out exactly how much you can qualify for, right? once you know how much you qualify for, then you get down to your comfort level. Sometimes people are very surprised that they qualify for more than they really realize or they could imagine. Some people who came in and they would say, you know, my credit score is not very good. We pull their credit and it's in the mid-600s, and we're able to offer them down payment assistance programs. We're able to offer them products. We're able to offer them a loan amount that they could not see themselves there. So, as like anything else, if we're going on a journey,
Right.
we have to, number one, find ourselves,
Right.
see where we are, and then find a direction so that we may be able to reach that goal.
So, Elias, tell me the satisfaction that you get out of assisting someone to become a new homeowner, particularly someone who is a person of color who came to perhaps not necessarily realizing the possibilities that they have. Tell me the satisfaction you get out of that.
It's an amazing satisfaction, and I'll tell you why. As this is my job and my career,
Right.
and that's how I put food on the table, as it were, for my clients, it's life-changing.
Right.
And you're part of that life-changing experience where they're being able to buy their first home. Sometimes, in many cases, they are the first ones in their family who are able to buy the first home.
Right.
And so their family members, their friends realize that, hey, you know what? If my best friend or my son or my daughter were able to buy their home,
Right.
then I can do it too.
Sure.
You have that, as we would say in Spanish, sí se puede hacer.
Sí se puede. That's right.
Yeah.
So I know you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the special programs that Bay Equity has, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that. So what are some of these special programs here?
Well, we have two of them. The first one I will talk to you about is called a Schoolteacher and Employee Assistant Program.
Right.
Okay? These are for anyone who's working in a K through 12 school district, be it the principal or the janitor or the cafeteria, food assistant or the teachers. They can all benefit, and they would receive 4% a down payment of the purchase price or the appraised value.
Right.
So that really helps them get their foot in the door, no pun intended,
Sure.
to be able to buy a house. And you can use this money for down payment and or your closing costs.
And that's even if it's a brand new teacher without necessarily the earnings history or the savings or whatever the case may be.
Correct. See, sometimes most people don't realize that to be able to buy a home, you can have as little as 2 years work history,
Right.
right? But for professionals like teachers or people who just graduated, they can come out right out of college, for the most part, be able to qualify for a loan based on what they're going to be making.
And I didn't want to mislead. This is not merely a program for school teachers, but for school employees.
School employees, correct. There's other programs available to the general public,
Right.
right? And with Bay Equity, we work with our community. We give special discounts for personnel or war persons of veterans who
Right.
are veterans or still active military. We give them a special discount in our fees as well.
That's fantastic. What's the other program you wanted to talk about?
The other program, it goes to the other spectrum, but it's actually really a need in our community. It's actually called the Doctors Program. And many of our physicians, when they graduate, they have up to $180,000 in student loans.
Right.
And even though they may be making good money,
Right.
it really hinders them from being able to purchase a home. This special program allows us to take into consideration those deferred student loan payments, and they can come in with as little as 3% down to buy their home. So it's a really, really good program.
That's great.
Yeah.
Have you had a lot of people who have been surprised to know that these types of programs exist?
Once you get to you sit down with a person, they are very surprised how manageable, how easy the process is to be able to get qualified. And they go out there and they find the house that they really like, and they know that they're able to make the payment because we've already talked about that.
Right.
So I encourage anyone who is thinking about buying a home, I'll be more than happy. My team is really more than happy to help them with that.
Well, that's fantastic. So, Elias, like my last guest, I did want to give you an opportunity to talk to the audience. Let's say we have somebody who thinks, you know what, everything's on the internet these days. I don't need to go to someone else to educate myself as to my home ownership possibilities. I'm a pretty good Googler. What do you say to somebody like that?
I think you still need to talk to someone who has the financial background, the professionalism, in order to be able to explain to you the process, be able to walk you through the process of getting your home loan and being able to make the right financial decisions with that education. Sometimes what we offer as well is a different financial point of view. Some people say, well, is 3.5% down payment, is that a lot of money? Well, other programs require 15%, 20%, 5% down payment.
Right.
So it could be relatively affordable. But that financial background that we have and we offer our clients, then that can actually be to their benefit.
Right.
Go ahead and Google, go ahead and learn and be able to ask your loan officer the right questions. Yeah.
Elias Delgado, thank you so much for
Thank you so
being
much
on
for
Valley
inviting me.
Movers and Shakers, and thank you also for helping people in our community who wouldn't necessarily be owning homes to own homes.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Hope you come back and see us again.
Thank you.
All right. Elias Delgado, we'll be back soon with our next guest. Welcome back to Valley Movers and Shakers, and I'm now here with our next great guest, Crystal Cabrera Suarez.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you are an attorney, but you're an attorney who works with the court system here in Fresno. And in addition, you're very much involved in the community with La Raza lawyers and other things. So I'm happy you're coming on, and you're going to tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Okay. Well, I'm a research attorney for Fresno Superior Court. That's what I do from 9 to 5 generally. And in my free time, I spend a lot of it working on stuff for La Raza Lawyers Association. We're generally trying to grow our organization, and our mission, if I had to boil it down, I'd say is to provide opportunities for people of color, to open doors for people of color, and to provide assistance to students who are, most of them are working towards a law degree. Not all of them, but most of them are working towards a law degree. So we're just trying to support the minority community in general, I would say. Not just the Latino community, but the community for people of color in general here in the Valley.
That's right, and that's important because I think it's less than 5% of the attorneys in Fresno County are persons of color. Is that right?
I don't know the exact statistic, but I believe it based on my own experience, and that is the primary reason. That is what drove me to be part of La Raza Lawyers, and there are a lot of other great benefits to being a part of an organization like La Raza. But what drives me still actually is seeing that recognizing the lack of diversity in our profession.
And and I'm very eager to discuss that. But before we get to that, I want you to maybe share with our viewers your personal journey on how you grew up and decided you wanted to become an attorney and pursued that goal and fulfilled it.
Well, my grandparents and my parents worked in the fields. They were farm workers. And so my parents didn't work in the fields after they had me, they didn't work in the fields anymore. But they grew up working in the fields, and they worked in the fields as young adults. And we grew up pretty poor. And where I grew up, it was outside of Reedley, in between Reedley and Orange Cove. There weren't very many opportunities for people of color, and it was a struggle. So I think that those experiences are really what pushed me into the profession. That's really what made me want to become an attorney, is seeking justice for people of color, I would say.
Now, a lot of the background that you grew up in, which incidentally is not unlike mine. I grew up back east, but in a demographic where not a lot of people became attorneys. Not because they aren't capable, but just because the opportunities, the mentorship, the examples weren't there. How did you overcome those odds and become an attorney? I think that's something that a lot of people would be very inspired to hear.
My mother had always worked so hard, and so she just really pushed me and supported me, and she would always tell me that if I didn't get an education that I would end up working in the fields, and I knew that I didn't want that life. It was a very difficult life. It was a struggle, and I saw so many things that I felt were unfair, and I thought if I made it to become an attorney that I'd be able to do something about them, even if it was just giving more opportunities to students of color in those little communities where they tend to be forgotten. But I would say that parental support, my parents just really pushed me, and then seeing the injustices is what drove me to keep going and what still drives me.
So you've mentioned your involvement in La Raza Lawyers. Explain to our viewers, what is La Raza Lawyers is obviously an attorney organization that's been around for many years for not only Latinos but persons of color in general. What's the mission of the organization?
It's actually open to everyone, but we do focus on empowering people of color in general. That is the mission of the organization, empowering people of color, providing opportunities for people of color, because I think what happens sometimes is when you apply for a job, let's say, as a person of color, you may not come with the same experiences as the other applicants. And sometimes when there's a person of color on the interview panel, they might give you the opportunity to grow in that position. And so I think it's important that we do that we provide opportunities to people in our community, because otherwise they may not get those opportunities again. I think that's the main goal of the organization, is to grow the legal community to fill it more with people of color, I would say.
And when you say also it as a secondary objective is to strengthen the bond between lawyers of color, or lawyers who aren't necessarily of color but who recognize the importance of having attorneys of color and the community.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that is one of our goals also. Because I think that, again, it provides opportunity, networking opportunities, career opportunities, but it's strengthening the community as a whole. Right now we're working on partnering with Arte Americas, and we're working on...
one of the few museums left in downtown, right?
Yes, and it's actually a really great place. I mean, it's not only do they have exhibits dedicated to people of color, they have exhibits dedicated to children of color, they have exhibits dedicated to women, and so I think it helps to further our mission also. It's almost like our sister organization, except for it's in the arts. So we're trying to support them, and I'm advocating for a yearly donation by La Raza Lawyers. We're working on the first one. Once the first one gets put through, hopefully every year we can commit to donating to Arte Americas. But we also do other things like that in the community. It's not just the networking, although that and the opportunities. The opportunities and the networking is really the primary goal of the organization, but then secondarily we also support the community as a whole.
And one of the things that La Raza Lawyers does every year is they have a great scholarship dinner, and where they recognize students, and also where they give scholarships to people to continue their study in the law, right?
Yes, we've had it, I think, for the past 35 years or something, and it's in memory of Judge Mario G. Olmos. Every year we've been able to give more and more scholarships. This year we gave out $10,000 in scholarships, and we did that because all the local attorneys got together, and it's not just the Latino communities, it's a lot of attorneys of color. It's a lot of attorneys who are not of color, too. A lot of people really believe in the cause, and they donate. And we raised, actually, for the banquet, we raised $30,000 this year. That covered all the expenses, all the scholarships, plus a little bit to put back into our bank account. So I think it's a cause that people really believe in. We do need more participation at our general meetings, but as far as getting people to give, to be generous, to get the donations, that has never been a problem.
So tell me, and this is almost a rhetorical question, okay? But tell me why you think it's so important, because to continue to work hard and not to view giving back to the community as something that's optional and if you have time, but a priority that you have to make time for. And the reason why I ask you that is I know you're busy. Every attorney is busy. You have a demanding job, and then in addition to that, you've got family and everything else. But you still make it a priority to go beyond your narrow personal existence and do things outside of that. Why is that?
Well, I feel like, first of all, if it wasn't for people who came before me, breaking down the barriers, that I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so I feel like it's my moral obligation to go back and to help somebody that's in the position that I may have been in years past. Right. Secondly, I think that if you don't work towards progress and diversity, that you're going to fall back to what things used to be like when there were no people of color at all in our profession and it was impossible to get a job anywhere. And third, I think that it's important. We bring a valuable, important perspective. It's our own experiences, being impoverished, those things make you look at the cases and at your clients differently. They give you a different passion from someone who didn't grow up in those circumstances. And I think it's important to have our perspectives in this career. And also, hopefully, we'll have more judges of color in the future. So it's something that I think we all need to work toward.
So some people think, activists these days has almost gotten a negative connotation. It's like become almost synonymous with troublemaker in many circles. But really, the alternatives are either you're an activist or you're complacent, right? And I want to give you an opportunity to talk to our audience like I have everybody else. And really speak to, no matter what you are, a judge, an attorney, a worker at Taco Bell or whatever else, why it's important to have a mindset of activism.
I think that you can be an activist in different ways, in little ways. It's important for everyone to be an activist in little ways, in the little ways that you can, even if you can't go out there and go to the protests. And a lot of people have jobs that prohibit them from doing things like that. And I think that sometimes in your job, though, you might be able to make a small decision to go a certain way that your passion is going to lead you in that direction. It's important to do that because if we don't all work towards progress, then we're going to start sliding backwards. So hopefully more people are inspired to act, or I can inspire more people to act. And even if it's a little thing like coming to the La Raza lawyers meetings and doing a little bit of community service or helping at Arte Americas. It doesn't seem like you're doing activism, but you are, because you're promoting a minority community and you're promoting minority excellence and you're promoting things that are positive for people of color.
That's fantastic. So, Crystal, tell me where you, and you're still obviously have a long career ahead of you, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to accomplishing in the future, not only as an attorney, but also within the auspices of La Raza Lawyers?
One thing that I'd like to do is to try and grow our organization. It's actually something that I didn't realize when I started, but that I've come to realize is that it's really hard to get participation. It's really hard, and I think it's because people are busy in their everyday lives, and maybe they don't, they don't really feel the negative impact of not doing anything. But our organization and the people, even though we are financially stable, the people who are willing to act, the group of those core people is getting smaller and smaller. And so that's one of the goals, is that we're trying to reach out to young people. We're trying to revive the student organization at San Joaquin College of Law. Trying to support them as much as we can, because I feel like that's a great way to feed into the organization, to grow it and to keep it strong for the future. Community partnering with other organizations like Arte Americas. Anything that is really remotely related to empowering people of color, we are welcoming of that, and we are supportive of that, and we are open to having people come and speak at our meetings, because we want to get more involvement. We believe that the mission of the underlying mission of the organization is important, and even if we can't do that in the legal community specifically all the time, we would like to do as much as we can in this community. So that's the goal.
Well, and that's a very inspirational goal, and I'm glad you were able to come on and express your experience, and share your points of view with us. And it really motivates me to know that there are people out there who realize that truly making it is also thinking about who might be behind you and making sure that the distance never gets too broad.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing?
You can say anything you want.
I promised that I would tell my two little boys hello. So, hi Malachi. Hi Phoenix.
Well, Malachi and Phoenix, you got a great mom. And she's been a great guest on our show.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Have a great rest of your week.
CentralValleyTalk.com